Hey everybody, welcome back. Yep, sorry it's been a while, but things have been a little hectic at work and I'm tired by the time I get back to the house, so I haven't really had a whole lot of time or focus to do one of these. But anyway, today we're covering this video. It was produced by Mr. K.D. Wells. Now I ran across him over on Hovind's channel when I was pointing out that Hovind is being a little cowardly for not finishing his debate, but that's neither here nor there. Now, I will warn you, his method of filming in this case is kind of shaky and unstable, so I'll be providing images of the text that he should have paid attention to, and I'm going to try to minimize it, but just so you're forewarned, there's a little bit of movement, a little bit of focusing in and out. It's not too terrible, but it is annoying to watch. So, let's talk about abiogenesis.
Hey, how you doing? Inadvertently, if you get into a discussion with one of these evolutionism disciples and there's no science to it, it is a religion of evolutionism.
Okay, so evolutionism is a made up word. It is there to set up the false equivalence and false dichotomy fallacies. It's not an actual legitimate word at all, and it's not a religion by any means. Science is not a religion. Science operates on what is provable. Well, I shouldn't say provable, what is testable and falsifiable. It does not require or demand faith. Faith being believing something without any real justification for it, without any evidence to back it up.
They will they will whip out the word abiogenesis and try to say that evolution doesn't cover the origin of life. And they'll try to say that they have no opinion on whether or not life originated from rocks or not. The evolution doctrine is the evolutionism doctrine is that life began 4.7 billion years ago or something like that, and when the Earth cooled down, the rains rained on the rock, and the rock created chemicals, and the chemicals evolved into life, and all life comes from that. So you are literally related to rocks. And then they'll say, well, we don't believe that. That's not what evolutionism teaches.
That's a solid try. It's pronounced abiogenesis, just so you know. And it is not, according to this definition, regardless of what it says, it is not synonymous with spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation is something that was proven wrong by Louis Pasteur in the 19th century. Okay? Basically, what it says is that whenever something dies, there's a vital essence that's in it. And this vital essence goes bad. And as a result, degenerate forms of life like worms, maggots, mold, up to and including mice and rats actually, are spontaneously generated from that dead material. Louis Pasteur disproved that in the 19th century, so we don't use that anymore. That's completely gone. But it's still pervasive and apparently hasn't been changed yet. Abiogenesis is the investigation of how life began on the planet. So, two completely different things. Evolution does not cover the origin of life. It covers how that life diversifies over time. Nothing else. It doesn't care where that life came from, it cares where it's going. The Earth formed as a gravitational concretion about 4.5 billion years ago. Okay? Planet formation, again, is one of those things that has nothing to do with evolution at all. Abiogenesis makes no mention or demand that life come from rocks. This is an insane argument that has no bearing whatsoever and no validity whatsoever. The process isn't completely known start to finish, I'll admit, but we do have several pieces of the puzzle. Take the Miller-Urey experiment, for example. That showed that amino acids can be formed naturally in conditions that would be expected of a prebiotic Earth. Also, take a look at this one covering how the first nucleotides may have formed on that same prebiotic Earth. You got to remember, Earth didn't have oxygen back then. That wouldn't be created until stromatolites made of cyanobacteria started cranking it out over the course of about a billion years. this isn't even taking into account that some of the material could literally rain down from space on meteorites. There have been meteor impacts that have had this kind of material in it, the amino acids, various chemical compounds, very complex. And we had no idea that they existed until they crashed into the planet and we scraped them off the damn meteor. The point I'm trying to make here is that abiogenesis is a multi-step process that's still being investigated through overlapping hypotheses, and at no point in this process is a creative agency like a god either indicated or necessary.
Okay, let's see. This is Science Magazine, posted back in 2012. It's a little bit older. But you owe your life to rock. The prolific formation and subsequent erosion of metal-rich granite, such as these eroded rocks in Finland, polished samples in the inset, starting 1.9 billion years ago, set the stage for multicellular life to evolve, a new study. Okay? And you can go ahead and read this all if you want to, but I'm telling you, it says that life came from rocks.
You evidently didn't read it. What this article is saying is to go from a single cell to a multicellular structure requires heavier metals like zinc and copper to incorporate into that organism. Not very much, but when you have to get bigger, sometimes you need to incorporate other elements like copper and zinc. Now, the granite that this is talking about is a easily erodible form of granite. So with the erosion, these materials would be released sooner. And that's all that's being talked about here, is that there's a hypothesis that this granite that is easily erodible released these materials into the water sooner than we think that they may have. But there are other people that disagree. As with anything in science, this too is under scrutiny. And there are people that say, well, this isn't exactly something that is necessary. It's possible that those elements were in a high enough quantity in the water to begin with, and this kind of erosion wasn't necessary to help kickstart it. It's just a matter of investigating and finding out what pans out better.
Let's check this one out. A little more contemporary, January 13th, 2016. This is Smithsonian.com. So anybody that says that it's not science, life and rocks may have co-evolved on Earth. Possibly when life originated, and it's going to tell you all about how we came from rocks.
Again, if you read this, you clearly misunderstood. He's talking about how minerals, like we talked about a second ago, are incorporated by life. Now that life develops into higher forms of life, and as a result affects the environment and the chemistry around it. Now this altered chemistry allows the formation of new minerals, and it keeps going in a cycle. Life gets more complex, more evolved, it changes the environment, the minerals change because of the changed environment, and it just goes on and on. Of note is this, which I found particularly interesting. Of the 5,000 species and above of minerals that we know of, and yes, minerals do come in species. I'm not going to touch that here because it's not really relevant. Of those 5,000 plus minerals that we know about, 2/3 of them are a direct result of life on this planet. That's damned impressive.
Tell me a little bit about the film Life's Rocky Start. Life's Rocky Start is the story of Earth's 4.5 billion year history told through the eyes of a mineralogist who has undergone a sort of transformation himself.
Now, as to the video Life's Rocky Start, I haven't actually had a chance to watch it yet as of this recording. I'm going to try to find it because it is pretty interesting to me, but from what I saw in the preview here, it makes absolutely no mention of life coming from rocks.
So what are the first minerals in the universe? Right after the Big Bang, things are much too hot, and even after things condensed a little bit, it was only hydrogen and helium gas that made up the bulk of the universe. So everything came from rock.
No, this requires a brief explanation of nucleosynthetic theory. Fred Hoyle proposed this in 1946. Basically, the gases that were around after the Big Bang, gravity still affects them. Bodies attract bodies. So, those bodies coalesced into the first stars. Now, in the hearts of stars, in the cores of stars, simple atoms like helium can be agitated and slammed together with such force that they form an atomic bond. Fusion. Everything up to iron can be created this way. Now, to get elements heavier than iron requires far more energy that you can really only get when the star goes nova or supernova. Now, stars don't just form solids whenever they're fusing. Sometimes most times actually, when a star goes nova or supernova, gases are released as well. Not everything is fused down to an iron core and then the iron core explodes. When a star explodes, it flings out solids, gases, everything, and then the planets form from that accretion.
Discover magazine. Earth's oldest rocks are revealing life's origins, fueling controversy. Discovery magazine, dated 2017, September 27th. Go read it.
I did. The only controversy here is questioning when life started to form on this planet. These scientists found evidence of life dating back 3.8 to 4.3 billion years ago, far further back than what we generally understand life starting at. Now, what they have found is something worthy of investigation and worthy of asking questions of, but it's not enough on its own to change the time frame that we have. Admittedly, it's hard to get anything from that far back in the planet's history because of the rock cycle and plate tectonics, but there are places where we can still get some information from that far back. This is a prime example of science being a self-correcting process. Better data, better measurements, better experiments. It helps us narrow down what we're looking at, and it helps us hone in on what is actually correct. And it helps us gain a more accurate understanding. So, Mr. Wells, what's next?
BBC Earth. And this one is really in depth. This one is like a course in evolutionism from the beginning to the present. This is posted on Halloween 2016. This is going to tell you that life came from rocks.
Where will it say that, Mr. Wells? It'd be nice if you would go to the section that you're talking about and highlight it, like I've seen you do before, even though that section didn't have anything to do with coming from rocks. It'd be nice if you just went to the section that you're talking about instead of cherry-picking lines.
This means we can define the problem of the origin of life more precisely. Using only the materials and conditions found on the Earth over 3.5 billion years ago, we have to make a cell. How hard can it be? It's impossible. That's how hard it can be.
Impossible, huh? As if a magical creation is more likely? No. You are right, though, that this is an incredibly long article. It does have a decent history of the entire abiogenesis investigation that we've been doing, straight up from where vitalism was disproved all the way up to modern day where we found the amino acids on the meteorite that I mentioned earlier. It's a pretty comprehensive rundown of what we know so far, with the experiments, so that you can look at them and find out yourself.
How did life arise on Earth? Stromatolites like these, found in the World Heritage Area of Shark Bay, Western Australia, may contain cyanobacteria, which were most likely Earth's first photosynthetic organisms. Stromatolites have been found that date back to about 3.7 billion years ago. So it's saying that life came from rock.
Exactly how? does that in any way imply that life came from rocks? How? Those are fossils of stromatolites, the things responsible for creating the oxygen in our atmosphere originally. They're not rocks, they're microfossils of literal living things that are still around today, I might add.
Indeed, some scientists think life appeared the moment our planet's environment was stable enough to support it. Okay? So to say that the origin of life is not part and parcel of evolutionism is a lie.
No, it isn't a lie to say that abiogenesis and evolution are completely separate. Let me explain. Abiogenesis, as I've stated already, asks where that life came from, how it got started, how it came from complex chemicals to what we define as life. Evolution asks how that life diversifies. Once the life is there, that's where evolution takes over. Everything prior to what we recognize as life falls into abiogenesis. They're in no way connected nor dependent on each other.
It is absolutely part of evolutionism. And they all talk about it. You guys are liars.
And you've shown that you don't have a clue what you're talking about. Well, that's it for now, guys. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter as usual, and I have a Patreon now, so if you like what I do, please consider supporting me there. Links will be in the description, and as always, stay curious, guys.